Hello, good afternoon, or rather good evening. Everyone, thank you for waiting. Welcome to the press conference after the video conference by foreign ministers of EU member states, chaired by High Representative Josep Borrell, who will inform you about the discussions and the outcomes of the discussions. High Representative, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you to all of you. Sorry for being late. It has been quite a long and intense, I wouldn't say Foreign Affairs Council, because it was not, strictly speaking, council, but an informal meeting of the Foreign Affairs Ministers to talk about and to discuss about the worst upsurge in violence in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories for many years, since 2014. I considered it was necessary to call for this meeting because the situation was really very bad and member states were taking positions, and I thought it was necessary to coordinate the European Union response. As you know, in an informal meeting, there is no formal conclusions. And what I am going to explain you is my takeaway, my intellectual takeaway from the today meeting. The text reflects the overall sense of the discussion. I acknowledge that there are nuances that some individuals have expressed, but it's a short text that cannot take into account all the discussion. But I think it reflects the overall agreement and the overall sense of our discussion. And I am happy to say that 26 out of 27 member states supported this overall sense of the discussion. As I explained to them, it's my responsibility to present you, not conclusions, but overall understanding, and it's up to you to see if you recognize yourself on that. So I am quite satisfied because I have an important support. This is my takeaway, but it has an important support. And the text says that it starts recognizing that the priority is the immediate cessation of all violence and the implementation of a ceasefire, not only agreed, but to implement a ceasefire. The purpose is to protect civilians and to give full humanitarian access in Gaza. The second is to consider that the upsurge of violence in the last days has led to a high number of civilian casualties, death and injured, among them a high number of children and women, and that this is unacceptable. Once again, we condemn the rocket attacks by Hamas, another terrorist group, on the Israel territory. And we fully support Israel's right to defense, but we have also considered and stated that this has to be done in a proportionate manner and respecting international humanitarian law. Once again, but this is nothing new, we recall for the need to respect fully the status of the holy sites and to uphold the right to worship. It was also strong support about the importance not to proceed with evictions in Sheikh Jarrah, in line with the European Union positions in settlements. As I said, we support the right of defense to Israel and the right to security, also for the Palestinians. And we consider that security for Israel and Palestine requires a true political solution. because only a true political solution could bring peace. And for doing that, we need to restore a political horizon. Now the priority, the urgency, is to stop violence and to implement a ceasefire. But the day after tomorrow, or whenever the violence stops, we have to engage to reopen a political horizon, exploring a space for re-engagement between the parties, developing confidence-building measures, improving living conditions of the people, and opening the path towards the potential relaunching of the peace process. The potential relaunching of the peace process, which has been in a stalemate for too long. We also consider that the holding of Palestinian elections must be considered a priority, and we ask everybody not to obstruct and to facilitate this electoral process. And from our side, we will renew our engagement with our key partners, notably with the new U.S. administration, with whom we have been in touch those days. Yesterday I had my last phone call with Secretary of State Blinken, and many colleagues have been talking with him, and also with the revived quartet. We have a new special representative that will be sent to the region and to engage with the quartet and other partners to convey them these messages from our side. Do I go to any other business right now, or do we let any other business? I can add any other business. Now, neither I'm going to mix with another crisis situation. On any other business, we got an explanation from the Spanish minister about and I'm going to say that in Spanish because I'm sure many people will be interested to follow that in Spanish. Como les decía, la ministra española ha explicado hoy a los ministros la situación en la frontera entre España y Marruecos, en Ceuta, donde se han producido preocupantes acontecimientos, un número de migrantes muy alto, sin precedentes en un solo día. Estamos hablando de 6.000 personas. Han llegado a Europa, porque han llegado a España, es decir, a Europa, nadando. Muchos de ellos son niños, muchos han tenido que ser rescatados y, desgraciadamente, hemos de lamentar al menos una víctima. Esta mañana he hablado con el presidente del Gobierno español para expresarle la plena solidaridad europea, el apoyo de la Unión Europea a España. Antes que yo, la comisaria Johansson se ha expresado desde el punto de vista de la política migratoria, como ha hecho también el vicepresidente Esquinas, y mi colega, el comisario Oliver, ha estado en contacto con el ministro marroquí. Por mi parte, quiero resaltar que Ceuta es la frontera europea con Marruecos y que la Unión Europea hará lo necesario para apoyar a España en estos momentos difíciles, que sin duda la mayor prioridad es tratar de evitar que haya muertes de personas que tratan de cruzar a nado, haya muertes de inmigrantes, y devolver la normalidad a Ceuta, gravemente perturbada por estos acontecimientos. Como saben, y yo lo puedo testificar como ministro de Exteriores que fui de España, la Unión Europea tiene una muy sólida y estratégica asociación con Marruecos. Una relación de asociación, de amistad, de cooperación, que se ha consolidado a lo largo de muchos años de buena cooperación. A veces con momentos como estos en los que hay que seguir llamando a la cooperación. Y la ministra nos ha informado de que ya una parte muy importante de estas entradas en territorio español y, por lo tanto, europeo, una parte de ellas, de acuerdo y en función de los acuerdos que se tienen con Marruecos, se ha procedido ya a su devolución a Marruecos. Cuando digo que tenemos una buena relación y que hemos de seguir manteniéndola, incluyo en ella las cuestiones migratorias. La gestión de la inmigración forma parte muy importante de nuestra relación y debe ser gestionada en un espíritu de cooperación y diálogo. He llamado a mi colega, el ministro Burita, no he podido todavía hablar con él, lo ha hecho el comisario Oliver, y estoy seguro que en este espíritu de diálogo y cooperación encontraremos soluciones que respeten los intereses comunes, basados en compromisos, en objetivos y en la mutua confianza.
En la lengua inglés o francés. So, colleagues, this is now space for you. We will take only a few questions because there is another conference planned after this one. So I start as in the order as you were raising hands on my screen. So first hand I was seeing was the one from Hans von der Burchardt. Hans, your microphone should be open and we see you, so you can go ahead with your question.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. High Representative. Thanks, Peter. Hans von der Burchardt from Politico. I have a question. High Representative, you mentioned there were only 26 countries signing up to this, so maybe you could elaborate a bit further on the one country that did not sign up to this statement. And do you see this as a problem? I mean, we had it recently also with China and Hong Kong. We had a similar situation, and here, especially on Israel and Palestine, there's not a unified response now, despite this council. You mentioned in your introduction that you had this informal meeting to coordinate the responses of EU member states, and now yet again you didn't mention to bring all 27 on board. So how problematic do you see this? Thank you.
Mire, es menos problema cuando se trata de un consejo informal que, por definición, no tiene conclusiones formales, que solamente, como he dicho, creo que he insistido en ello, en el sentido general de la discusión, sin entrar en algunas palabras que para unos serían mejor si fueran otras, pero no les quiero engañar, no quiero presentarles lo que ha ocurrido hoy como si todos los Estados miembros hubieran tenido el mismo sentido general de la discusión. No sería honesto por mi parte, creo que es mejor reconocer que ha habido un país, el mismo que también dificultó que si hubiera un acuerdo de una posición europea recientemente en el Consejo de Seguridad de las Naciones Unidas. Seguro que lo adivinan ustedes fácilmente, se trata de Hungría, pero no es una novedad. A mí me hubiera gustado que todos hubieran entendido que el sentido general de la discusión es el que contienen estos apartados, que francamente me cuesta entender cómo no se puede estar de acuerdo con ellos, ¿no? Pero así es, y yo no tengo más remedio que tomar nota. Insisto que tratándose de conclusiones que no son formales, y por lo tanto yo se las cuento de viva voz, pero no forman parte de ningún texto, me parece menos relevante. Pero sí me he permitido recordar a mis colegas que en el Consejo de Asuntos Exteriores tenemos como misión contribuir a crear una política exterior y de seguridad común. Y que eso no es un capricho, que eso es un mandato del tratado, que dice que todos los Estados contribuirán lealmente y positivamente a la definición de una política exterior común. Ese es mi trabajo y hago lo posible por conseguirlo. Y tratándose de un tema tan difícil como era el que hoy nos ocupaba, pues estoy muy satisfecho de que este sentido general de la discusión haya sido compartido por 26 Estados.
Next question, Patrizia Antonini. Patrizia, your mic is open now.
Thank you, High Representative. I would like to understand to what extent this new conflict endangers the Vienna negotiations on JCPOA. And do you think now this negotiation is in standby, or is it dead, or what should we expect? Thank you.
Cuando se refiere al nuevo conflicto, no se referirá usted al de Ceuta, ¿no?
No, Israel-Palestina, es claro, ¿no?
Se refiere al de Israel y Palestina. Como ha dicho usted, nuevo, yo he creído que se refería a algo que acababa de ocurrir. Realmente esta situación dura ya desde mediados de abril, ¿no? O sea, estamos ya de nuevo. Desgraciadamente no se le puede llamar ya nuevo porque lleva durando un mes. Francamente no lo sé, espero que no, creo que no. Las negociaciones en Viena continúan, tienen su ritmo, su dinámica propia. No hemos entrado para nada a considerar una posible correlación entre ambos problemas.
Merci Peter. J'ai un problème avec les canaux d'information.
Non, pas de problème. Nous pouvons écouter et nous pouvons voir aussi.
Non. J'entends le canal allemand. Peter, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui. Allez-y. You can ask your question. Vous pouvez continuer avec la question.
Peter, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui. Nous attendons.
Okay.
It seems that Nureddin has a problem. Okay, so I go to Nureddin. One last try on essay.
Peter?
Oui, nous sommes ici. Oui, ok.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup. Je suis désolé pour les problèmes techniques. Mr. High Representative, good afternoon. I have a couple of questions, please. This status quo, even if we have the ceasefire today and the end of the violence, the political status quo on the ground could be only, let's say, a pause like it happened in 2014, and then the violence will emerge another time, and it could be more violent than this time. So my question, should the international community, including the European Union, of course, look for a new framework which allow the negotiation to be quick and very quick to get, let's say, a final political solution? And if you don't mind, I have another question regarding that. Over the past week, violence by Israel and Palestine, armed groups against civilians on both sides has been characterized by severe violence and violation of the international humanitarian law. So, and some of them could be amount to the war crimes. Should the European Union, or could the European Union, support the issue of the accountability, including the International Criminal Court jurisdiction over Palestine? Because without justice, it's very, very difficult to have peace. Thank you, sir.
En efecto, sin justicia es muy difícil tener paz.
Sorry. I understand that there is some problem with the translation, so if you could answer in English.
I can answer in English, yes. Look, one of the newest things in these informal conclusions is this call to restore a political horizon. We said now it's urgent to stop violence, ceasefire, avoid more casualties. There are too many. But at the same time, and this is something that I want to stress, we insist on the idea that the status quo is not an option, because the violence will come again, because as far as there is no peace, you know, security, you never have 100% security. And in the past, you see how many times we went to violence again, and Gaza was destroyed, and then we rebuild Gaza. This is not an option. I think that we Europeans today, we have said something very important. We need a true political solution. That's the only way to bring peace. And in order to do that, we have to explore how to re-engage, how we can build confidence building, how to can improve the living condition of the people, and how we can open the path to a potential relaunching of the peace process. The international community and also the European Union have been looking on the other side, hoping that the problem will be solved by themselves, by itself. Well, this is not the case. And this situation reminds us that in order to look for a solution, we need to engage on looking for this solution. And that we call for a renewed engagement with our key partners. Hopefully, today it's possible with the US, the revived Quartet, and the European Union. I think this is very important. We discussed a lot, and I am very happy that a strong majority of the member states were supporting this approach.
Okay, thank you very much. For the colleagues at the other side, if you didn't get the translation, as I got signals that you were not getting the translation from Spanish, I think when you replay the press conference, there should be the translation then on the Council TV or on the EBS. So I hope you will get that correctly. So thank you very much.
Second question, please. Peter, the second question.
Yeah, go ahead. The second question was not answered.
Mr. Borrell, I have my second question about the if the European. Do you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead. We hear you.
Peter, do you hear me?
Just continue. Continue. We hear you. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I asked the question about the if the European Union could support the accountability issue, including the International Criminal Court jurisdiction over Palestine, because what happened this week, that the civilians from both sides have been targeted deliberately in a flagrant violation of the international humanitarian law, and there are crimes which could be amount to war crimes or crimes against humanity. So there is a need for accountability. Would the European Union support this demand, the need for the people to have justice? Thank you.
Look, I cannot talk about potential possibilities. I can only tell you which has been our discussion and the overall sense of this discussion. And I think that if you look carefully at the sentence, they are important. They don't say what you want me to say, because we haven't said. But I want to stress that we clearly said that we supporting the Israel right to self-defense fully. We remind that this has to be done in a proportionate manner and respecting international humanitarian law. And the number of civilians dead and injured, among them a high number of children and women, is unacceptable. Well, any figure will be unacceptable, but this specific figure, we qualify this as unacceptable. And this is what the general sense of our discussion. I think there are quite important statements, and they say what they say.
Thank you very much, High Representative. That's it. We have to clear the room now. So thank you, colleagues, for joining. Thank you to the interpreters, and everyone have a nice evening. See you soon. Bye.